Have you ever heard the claim that the military is secretly 100 years ahead of us in technology? Is it possible they're hiding things like free energy or anti-gravity devices? Let's break down what's real, what's plausible, and what's just a bit of an exaggeration. First, let's talk about the military research time gap. It's absolutely true that defense research often runs way ahead of what we have in our homes. Take the internet, for example. It began as DARPA's ARPANET back in the 1960s, but the public web didn't really take off until the 1990s. That's a 30-year gap. What about GPS? It was a US Air Force project in the 1970s, but it wasn't fully available for public use until the year 2000. Drones were used for military reconnaissance in the 80s, but civilian drones only became common in the 2010s. Even stealth materials, developed in the 70s, weren't even partially disclosed until the 90s. So, a lag of 10 to 40 years is pretty standard. This delay happens because of national security, secrecy, and the slow process of scaling up production. So, is the gap 100 years? That's probably stretching it. But the feeling of a century-long divide makes sense when you hear about how exotic some of this CLASSIFIED research can sound. Now, what about these so-called ether technologies? When you hear the term, it's usually referring to some really out-there concepts, things like zero-point energy, which is the idea of pulling energy right out of the vacuum of space, or anti-gravity and field propulsion, which would allow vehicles to fly without wings or rockets. People also talk about plasma systems, frequency-based healing, and even something called scalar energy. These ideas aren't new. They were seriously explored in the early 20th century by brilliant minds like Nikola Tesla, with his dream of wireless energy transmission. There was also T. Townsend Brown, who worked on electrogravitics, and Victor Schauberger, who studied implosion energy in water vortexes. Officially, MAINST or EAM science moved away from the concept of an ether after Einstein's theory of relativity replaced it with the idea of spacetime. However, that doesn't mean the research just stopped. Some classified labs and French scientists continue to experiment with these field effect concepts, just under new names like high-frequency plasma propulsion or vacuum energy research. So, what kind of unconventional projects are plausibly being worked on by the military today? We know for a fact that defense agencies have explored some pretty wild stuff. There was Project Stargate, which investigated psychic ability